Abba, Father, blessed be your name. Thank you so much for your word and your Holy Spirit, which quickens your word for the body, who encourages the spirit and the word, and for your will, that with all of these together in your perfect timing, we may be the perfect and pure bride that we are to be. May your kingdom come and your will be done. Hashem Yeshua, our King. Amen. This is going to be a Swedish lesson. Just kidding. Okay. This is actually a study. The first time I heard it was when I was in Japan as a missionary. Late at night, I was learning my lines to do English as a second language course for a school. And I don't know where I got this cassette tape. And I put it in, and here's this lady talking about the little foxes. At that point, early 20s, I had never, late teens, I had never even read the book, Song of Solomon. I think it was still a couple years after that before I even got into the book. But that's where I first heard this concept, the little foxes that spoil the vine. And so I thought, wow, that's really neat, because the idea really is true. And this is something I finally said, we need to look at this. So that's what we are going to do today. Just note that it is not an exhaustive study, because there's a ton of things that could be little foxes in our lives, and the foxes that are in my life may not be in your life. Equally, understand that some of the foxes overlap, or the idea that what I might consider a cause and effect, it might be just the opposite for you. I'm very aware that Mrs. Manuel is a psychology major, and she will probably tell me, I think you got that a little funny there, or you're missing about 15 points. It's probably true, but the whole idea is the start. And I think it's a great concept, and if you have something to contribute, hallelujah. Some of the examples overlap too. I got this, yes, a lot from different people from around the world. It's kind of neat. And in the end, all of these teachers had different approaches to it. So, since it is the season of pumpkin pie, and my wife has almost everything pumpkin that is purchasable in our house right now, we are going to look at this study as pieces of the pie, right? So the very first piece will be the book itself, the book of Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, you say, which one is it? Well, the very first line says the Song of Songs, which is of Solomon. And that's why you have this mix between different translations, what's in the title. Well, I always learned it this way. Well, this is the reason why you have both ways. Is it a story of Solomon, the man who had 600 or 700 wives and 300 concubines? He had some special relationship with a Shulamite wife? It's possible. Is it a singular relationship? Was he writing from the standpoint of just an allegory of sort? That has been quite a bit controversy from theologians over the years, but if you look over there on the left side, Song of Songs is basically an idiom. In Hebrew, it means the greatest song, okay? And that's what that is. And you see down here, poem that explored love and desire. That's what we find in Jewish concept over the centuries. They looked at it as Israel and Adonai and that relationship. Christian theologians then flipped the coin and said that's the picture of Christ in the church. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that a little bit. It has been in the past 100 years with excavation and things, we have found that there has been a lot of love poetry from antiquity. So it was actually not something uncommon that Solomon would write along the same subject. But allegorically speaking, Ellie, I had you in mind when I have this next picture. This comes from the the YouTube channel, I forgot what it's called, but understand that the word pictures here are truly word pictures. You don't really want to find a man whose eyes are like doves and whose mouth is dripping with honey. It'd be kind of scary in a back alley. But some themes from this book, they are seeking each other and finding each other. There's like 3 or 4 times going through the book of Song of Solomon that you have the bride and the beloved. They're looking for each other, and then finally they meet and they're so excited, and then boom, all of a sudden he's gone again, and oh, she's beside herself and she's talking to her friends. I miss him. He describes her, she describes him, and all of a sudden they meet again, and the book ends that way. And you might think that's a big downer, but really, it's again a picture of showing what love is, and the desire of a couple. The other theme that goes with that is the joy of physical attraction. He made us to find attraction in each other. And when you think of us being in His image, and we're complementary, doesn't it make sense that we should find attraction in each other? So that's a neat thing. Another theme, another aspect of the book is that they repeat this phrase 3 times. Don't awaken love until it's time. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the hinds of the field, speaking of a field, do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. That was a wonderful moment, and it was a moment that the time was right. This is a picture that I have yet to give to the couple. It's on my phone from the rehearsal. Yes?
You know why they had to say that?
No.
Because they weren't anywhere near Columbia and there was no coffee. They did not want to pick her up.
Amen. Can I get a witness? I don't need a witness on that. I've got it right here. But it's the fact that the bride is saying to the daughters of Jerusalem, comparing it to gazelles or hinds, not to arouse or awaken my love until it's time. I'm afraid I didn't look that up, because that could be a few things. The it could be him. We know in Hebrew, it, him, masculine, it, him, it, her, feminine, could be referring to a person or the thing of love. Which one is it? I think going through the book, the man is quite ready for love. So I think it's the business of waiting for the right season. Another key verse or concept that is in there is this idea of belonging. We all know this phrase, don't we? My beloved is mine and I am his. Actually, we know it the other way around, don't we? We usually say, I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. The month of Elul is Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, is that phrase together. What is, to me, is really neat is the first time that it's said. It's the woman first saying, making possession. And we know that woman was taken from man, that they have their roles in Yahweh, which is really beautiful. The man is to be the protector in the home, and yet here's the wife, the woman saying first, he belongs to me, and I give myself fully to him. That's a beautiful thing. So the next one is the one we usually think of. She then turns it around and says, I am my beloved's. So what's the last one? What do you think? Any guesses? I'll tell you. Kind of both and neither. I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. This picture here speaks a lot to me, because I love to rub my wife's shoulders, you know? And it's a servant thing. It's not a dominance thing. It's because I love her, I want to serve her, and I think that's what the bride is saying here. She's declaring, I am his, and the guy is absolutely crazy over me. Now that's what that's what the writer is trying to communicate, and I think it's a beautiful message. All right, one other aspect of this book that we have not yet touched on is the friends of the bride. The picture of learning from the relationship. So you think the book of A Song of Solomon is for couples. Actually, it's for couples and for people who are not yet couples. So you guys here in the front row, study carefully, right? Because all of these people are learning from this relationship as it's going along. They're listening to this lady. Oh, where is he? I love him. I miss him. I desire him. And he comes along and he says the same thing. And they're all in the same point. They're going, wow, that is really cool. And we are with you. And so it turns around, then they would find themselves in the same position. With a picture of learning from this relationship, I want to ask single people, who speaks into your life? Since 90% of people do eventually get married, it is wise to start getting ready and to learn from examples that we have. All right. What is this here? Your friends are a big influence. Why is it sometimes we have podcasts of people who've never been married, who've been in and out of relationships like they go through the revolving door, that are trying to be experts to single people on what married life should look like? However, being a single person, does that mean then I have nobody to answer to? I can be my own thing. I can, everything I buy at the store is motivated for me. I can be irresponsible because I don't have to answer for it. I can be out at parties all day, all night. I can rack up my credit card debt. Do you know the person, I guess, from one of these teachings I heard, the person who has the most credit card debt built up? Single young ladies. I can cross physical lines because I can, right? Well, no. There's my picture. It's not like I'm married or something. See, he's a party hound. I was looking for a party hound. Okay. The myth is, I'll meet someone and all my little foxes will disappear. Actually, it doesn't work that way, because you pick up baggage and you bring that to the relationship. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh dear, that person has baggage too, that I had nothing to do with. Did I marry that? Okay, so this is what that looks like. Yes?
Our experience was when we married, we each brought our own baggage, and her baggage became my baggage, and my baggage became her baggage. And that was something that I personally wasn't really prepared for and didn't really think about it. But you learn that when you're married and you're starting to deal with baggage that's, like you said, I didn't even know this person when this baggage initiated, but now it's my baggage.
Yeah.
And I have to help deal with it. So it's a good thing in that it grows you as a couple, but I would really rather a young couple get married without baggage.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something that the book of Song of Solomon is telling us. One, start to focus on my partner. Understand them before we get into I will. Because by then, it's done. And I own that baggage. And it may be from another country, and it may not be Gucci. I've never owned Gucci luggage. The other thing, and just more important, is while I'm single, let's do this. Now is the time to read the Word, figure out my spiritual gifts. Remember the teaching series from Mr. Schwartz. Serve the greater body. Maybe go on a missions trip. Figure out my theology. Knock out my education. Pay off my debt. Maybe seek out older, wise counsel. Now is a good time, because once Paul says a man who is married, he's got a lot more on his plate all of a sudden. If I can tap into a mentor now and learn some things, I'll know more about myself to be able to communicate to that person when I meet them, and we'll be on far better terms when that time comes. So just to conclude this piece of the pie, there's from the Bible Project, the book has some conclusions. Love is as strong as death. Just to think about that. The human longing to know and to be known. And where does that gift come from? The gift comes from Yahweh. So naturally, it's a desire that's very powerful inside us, and it should be, and it's right. It's not something Hollywood came up with, nor defines. Next piece of pie, vices. This is the one that I was actually in. So now, as you read David's email, and he said we're going to talk about the little foxes. These are the little foxes that I was thinking of. Have you thought of some? I'll go through them. But first, let's define a fox. Let's look at the characteristics of a fox. Ellie, would you read those characteristics?
Exclusive.
Elusive.
Obscure, crafty, tricky, sly, disgusting? Disguising. Cagey, not flamboyant.
Like Mr. Olson, flamboyant. Preferring
to be sneaky.
subtlety. Now, why did they throw in those extra letters?
And cunning over brute strength.
Choosing subtlety and cunning over brute strength. A fox knows he's not going to beat out a wolf. So he uses the abilities that he has, which is the sneak ability. He's far better at that. That's what the fox is. What is the vine? The vine would represent the fullness of your life, your productivity. And what I like to look at ultimately is Yahweh's harvest, because he's harvesting us and he's using us for the harvest. So if we keep that in mind as we go into this, let's look at these foxes that affect our productivity. The first one I call unforgiveness. Now, understand that all of these things start off as a human aspect. You know, everybody gets hurt. We run into situations and there's misunderstanding and there's an insult, there's something taken wrong, or something just works out such that I'm hurt. It's what I do with that then that becomes a little fox. This little fox actually begets. You know all of those begets in Scripture? What does a little fox of unforgiveness parent? The first one I thought of, first two are self-righteousness and isolation. Self-righteous because that person hurt me. So I stand obviously from the position of being correct, and they are in the wrong. And that justifies me to judge them. And what does that do? It pushes them away. And suddenly I'm the only one on the island. It creates disrespect and dissension. Think of it this way. If you have a parent who is sitting at the kitchen table, at the dinner table, and railing about this person, and little Bobby there is listening, and next time he meets that person, he's got the license to not give that person any attention. Why? Because the dad just got done saying, he hurt me, I'm justified, he's a loser. Oh, what does that do in the child's eyes? And dissension, what have I done? I've turned around and I've broken up the body. Then Kepha said to Yeshua and asked, Master, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Yeshua said, like, no way, brother. I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. This is just before he gives the parable of the unforgiving servant. Next one. I'm just going to move through these. Defamation. This is a big word. We usually think of this in the courtroom. What is defamation? I started with Lashon Hara, which is a Hebrew phrase which means the evil tongue or the evil speech, right? Which is slander. But defamation would cover both libel, which is the mischaracterization in writing, and slander, which is the mischaracterization in the spoken word. Okay? It doesn't even have to be an outright lie. And that's where it becomes a little fox. It can sneak in, and we can just see it as something that's nibbling away at the vine. It doesn't really attack the fruit sitting up here until we realize the vine goes all the way down and is fed from down there. Mischaracterization, whether skewed facts or outright falsehood. Backbiting. This is what the guy from Nigeria said. He said he's watched women come into the sanctuary, into their church, and they'll be sizing each other up with their eyes. Guys, we don't even think about this. You know, like, what did you wear yesterday? What did you wear last time you were at service? Beats me. Well, she wore that last time. I saw that. You know, and when we hear that, what does that mean? It means we don't measure up. We don't have enough clothes to keep up with the Joneses. I'm not as pretty, or as I'm not. Boom. That. What does it say? It says, people, this should not be. Stop murmuring. Parent 2, character assassination. We may not have killed someone, but what have we done with our tongue, as James says? A little tiny thing. And again, you know, it puts me in that position when I can say about David, well, he's done this, you know. I don't mean to tell you. I'm going to tell you this in love so that you know how to pray. But yesterday, oh my goodness. And it puts me from this position on the high horse. And what does that do? I'm not humble before Yahweh, and I'm not fulfilling either of the greatest commandments. Pride and vindictiveness. When I slander, again, haughtiness and pride, I think those are very close siblings. Vindictiveness means it puts me back in the right position. I feel good because I got back at them. Boy, I beat them up. And guess what? They don't know a thing. Where does the fox live? It lives in my heart because I opened the door to my vineyard. And where is my fruit? It's dying on the vine. Yes?
Another biological thing that slander and unforgiveness is apparent to is just the stuff that ends up being in you. You know, I mean, they have done studies of what happens in the brain when you have a lot of negativity flowing, and it actually creates poison. So when you have all this stuff in you, you are literally poisoning your own brain. And then at some point, when it's been happening over time, that poison starts to seep into the rest of your body, and that's how a lot of some of our cancers, some of our other diseases have actually been found to be caused by a lot of the bitter roots.
And when I have one Snicker bar a day, I don't notice anything. But after 30 years of Snicker bars, and after 30 years of the evil tongue, what I've done, how many people have I crucified down the road behind me? Maybe more than Stalin. Korah in the book of Numbers. Remember, Korah said to Moses, what's the deal here? We are all priests. Remember at Mount Sinai? I sat on the mountain edge and ate with him and did not die. I'm just as good. He sounded just as justified in his argument. But Moses turns around and says, it is against Yahweh that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? Grumble, grumble. The incredibly moaning heads, as our children's tape used to call the children of Israel in the wilderness. Psalm 119, though rulers sit together and slander me, your servant will meditate on your decrees. Your statutes are my delight. They are my counselors. Remember the teaching that Johnny gave on Psalm 119? This is the counteract that we do. Going along a little bit with what Melanie said, here's a picture of the things from Proverbs 6 that talks about how it affects which parts of this temple, and then how can you imagine it does not have a physiological and ultimately physical effect on us? Kiduk. The next foxes are a set of twins. They go very well together, sadly. Jealousy and bitterness. And they are, well, let's see, jealousy. Again, you know, understand this first, that everybody sees and compares. In the back of your mind, you are assessing and making adjustments all the time. Ellie's wearing blue denim. Josiah's wearing plaid. And Seth is wearing solid black shirt. It's a judgment in my mind. It's in the back of my mind. I'm not doing anything with it. It just helps me to process my surroundings. But when I allow that to become the grass that's greener in my neighbor's yard, when I go, they've got something I don't have. I don't have the opportunity. Why don't I have the opportunity to have a black shirt like Seth? That's where my bitterness comes in. I sit and focus on that long enough. Jealousy brings in his brother and he goes, hey, let's hang out together. How about we be a little bitter? In fact, that's an enemy tactic. He comes up beside you because he cannot enter you because you're the temple, but he'll use first-person speech. He'll go, that's not fair to me. And then all of a sudden we adopt the thought, yes. Yes. What do you mean?
I mean, like when you're jealous about something, it like becomes bitterness.
That's why I made them a pair of foxes. They chew on the same bone at the same time. Unfortunately, they get along very well together. They help to bring about smaller foxes even of low self-esteem and frustration. We have all been there and done that. And resentment. Look at that. What does the scripture say? The man who had an evil spirit, it went away, and after a time of being in an arid place, it came back and found the house cleaned up and ready. So he brought in 7 more worse. That's what these twins do. They bring in things that then tear us down inside. And this can be all internal.
Yeah, David, and ideally that's where we would be happy that Seth has a black shirt. I'm happy for you, Seth, that you have a black. You look good in that black shirt.
Yes, he does.
Matches your black hair, matches all kinds of stuff. Anyway, but what happens is if we are jealous or bitter, you find out I can't be happy that Seth's got a black shirt, so I'm going to make sure that Seth's not happy that he has a black shirt either. Either I'm going to steal it, or I'm going to criticize him and say, you look better in white.
Yeah,
whatever.
Which is then going back to the defamation, the slander,
Yeah.
And my murmuring and character assassination. This is probably one of the saddest lines in the whole book of Jonah. But to Jonah this seemed very wrong. He became angry. He prayed to Yahweh, "Isn't this what I said, Yahweh, when I was still at home? This is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate Elohim, slow to anger and abounding in love, an Elohim who relents from sending calamity. Now, Yahweh, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." I get halfway. I can't get through that without laughing sadly, because it'd be like me saying, "Debbie, you just make me so angry. You're so nice and kind and sweet to people all the time. You're just thinking of others, and there's something doesn't add up." And that's where he's at. Oh, whoops. Go back. Samuel. Oh, 1 Samuel. Yeah, down there. I didn't put it in. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul and was singing and dancing with joyful songs and with timbrels and lyres. And as they sang, they danced. They sang.
Saul has killed 1,000, but David has killed
Saul has killed his thousands. David killed 10,000. Saul has Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. He was ticked off, is basically what the writer wanted to say. They have credited David with 10,000s, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept his twin foxes, kept a close eye on David. Distrust. Let us move on now to something of a sweeter, more gentle little fox of distrust. Distrust. It is apparent, I'll get into it here in just a moment. It is apparent to what? When we have been in a situation and someone has broken our trust, we could let that go. We could try to clear up the problem. We could fix it. Or we could just continue to hold it and hold that person in low self-esteem and maybe whisper about them behind their back, all the while being justified in not trusting them. Self-survival. It's not my fault. That person hurt me. They didn't follow through. They didn't listen to my ideas. They're blaming themselves, basically. There, I'm done. You know, you have it your way, fine. I'm done. That kills me, because that's what it's doing, is eating away at the productivity, the fruit of the Spirit that Yahweh has for you and me in our hearts, in our lives. This is the passage that goes with Song of Solomon. When Yahweh says to us, "Come away with me, my love. Come away with me." He wants to be. Joseph went through all of that mess and saw the plan. And he said, "This is why I was sent ahead of you." When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, and they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all of the wrong we did to him?" So they sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the Elohim of your father." When their message came to him, Joseph wept because they had learned nothing. After 14 more years of living in the land, seeing his hand, his provision, his kindness, his forgiveness, they held on to that little fox because it was their right. No, it wasn't. Stages of distrust: doubt to suspicion to anxiety. Ooh, we haven't even got to anxiety yet. That's next. Fear and self-protection, self-preservation. Okay, I'm not going to hit all of these real hard, but consider these 25 behaviors that contribute to creating mistrust within your team. You fail to keep your promises. You serve yourself first. You micromanage. You're inconsistent. You fail to share. You choose not to tell the truth. Resort to blaming. You betray confidence. You choose to not allow others to contribute. You downplay others and their abilities. You refuse to support. These are all little foxes that go under distrust, that feed distrust, which is a little fox, which I never went into that, but when they're saying little, does it mean it's young? Or does it mean like there are bigger foxes? It's not addressed. The whole fact is it's a little fox that is doing a job, and we must get rid of them. You refuse to be held accountable. You rationalize sarcasm. You fail to admit you need support. You fail to speak up. You refuse to consider the idea of constructive conflict. There is no constructive conflict. It's my way or the highway. You consistently hijack team meetings. This is when you were telling me about earlier, the people I'm picturing. You probably worked with a few people that did not trust others, probably because they were hurt and held on. Get the idea. Here we go. Anxiety. Anybody tense yet? Oh, good. Just kidding. To clarify, when I say anxiety, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about what every one of us can do, taking on to ourselves the little things, the little worries, concerns of the day, and building them so that they eat away at us. Parent to what? What would anxiety bring about? Fear. Worries. Oh yeah, where's my... Here, listen to this a moment. I couldn't get this on there. This was from some medical website. Everyone worries sometime, and some people worry all the time. Worry is unique to humans. It is a type of thinking, rumination. That's quite a picture right there. We know what cows do with their several stomachs. We take something and we put it down inside, we swallow it, and then we bring it back up and we chew on it over again. It allows us to think on things over and over, to work out our problems and find solutions. We were built this way. We were built with imagination to be able to picture things and process them. We can process two directions. Imagination is also unique to humans and allows us to work this process. Worry is a function of our imagination, but using our imagination better, we can also decrease worry and increase calm. Everybody take a deep breath. All right, worry is often focused in either the past or the present, but it is the enemy of being present in the now. Most future things that we worry about will never happen. Oh man, that just kills me. I'm so sick with worry about that. We have neurological systems called parasympathetic and sympathetic that help us in both surviving and thriving, and sometimes when we turn them on by worry. The brain doesn't... This is a neat picture here. The brain is imagining or putting up a picture inside, but the brain is not necessarily telling the difference between a dangerous reality that's out there in the external world and the dangerous things that we worry about in our imagination. It's seeing both images. We have to process that and determine which is which. Our self-consciousness is a powerful tool for mental health or not. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work myself? I'm stressed. Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the master said, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, and indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Job, oh, this line kills me too. Some translations it says, most. What I feared the most has come upon me. What I dreaded has happened to me. Now, I'm going to set a trap for you, but I want you to step around it. Have you not thought to yourself, what is my greatest fear? What would be the worst thing that could have happened to me? And then you sat there and you let the fox in for a little while and you humored it. And you thought, oh wow. Hopefully then you said, but greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. Whatsoever things are true, just, honest, pure, lovely, think on these things. And know that he has a plan for you. Oh, yeah, you're going to love this. Okay, I don't know if you've ever seen the film Rogue One, but there's this man that is blind and does not really know a whole lot about the Force, according to the storyline. But he knows something, and he's capitalizing on what he knows, which ain't much, but it does the job. And he's walking through laser things, shooting every which way. This is what the blind man said after Yeshua healed his sight, and the religious leaders came and said, oh, a second time they summoned him, John 9, the man who had been blind. "Give glory to Adonai by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, Whether he was a sinner or not, I don't know. I don't have the 45 points of theology. This one thing I know. I was blind and now I see. Hallelujah. Last fox? Yeah, my last little fox in this piece of the pie. You're kidding. We still have 3 pieces of pie to go. Hope you're all hungry and brought your dream whip. Discouragement and despair. Yes, everybody gets discouraged, right? But do we allow it to move on to despair? Are they the same thing or are they very similar? Yeah, maybe I should have put them as a pair. It is the parent to, think of it, low self-esteem again, defeatism and pessimism. Well, there you go. I knew it was going to happen. Yeah, that's my lot in life. Oh, that's the way you are. Yeah. I just don't get served the same cup of tea as everybody else. In the storyline of Pilgrim's Progress, there's a point of there's despondent. That guy has given up. He's given up on life, and he's trying to chum up with Pilgrim. Pilgrim's like, thankfully gets away from him. Cynicism and despondency. Those are big words. Cynicism. You know, in the end, everything is bad. It just, I've never met a person in that position that you could trust. Or you could, you know, it's just the way it is. Don't believe used car salesmen. Don't believe politicians. Don't believe people who sit with microphones on their head with a little computer in front of them. And just, they've all burnt me. And so I feel justified going on with despair and being useless in the kingdom. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to Yahweh. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone'? We would rather rot as slaves with 3 square meals than live on our own in the promised land with flowing milk and honey. Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Well, and they did die in the desert, didn't they? Okay, here we go. Third slice. Now this is to married couples.
The thing that you're most afraid of is what happened to you. That's what Job said. And the thing that they were most scared about, and they were basically, you know, putting that on Moses. That's actually what ended up happening to them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
How quickly they forgot that they cried out in Egypt and Yahweh heard them and remembered them. Actually, I say this is for married couples, but again, this is for those preparing, those in their first 6 months, and I'm looking at Sarah and Casey. Where are they stinking today? I tell you what, this was for them when I originally started preparing this. So, you'll have to, oh, yeah, well, as one of my favorite lines from Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye says about his first married daughter, they're so happy together they don't realize how miserable they are. Okay, so this is about marriage. And here I'll give you the headlines, the bullet points: priorities, running the house, technology, conflict, legitimate fears. And all of these you can anticipate, but we will run through them quickly. The whole idea is architecture. How are we building our house? And if you're married for 20 years and you haven't thought about this yet, shame on you. But it's always a good time to take stock. Always. Right? So, the priorities. Let's start with priorities. What are the priorities? Well, there's one set of priorities that goes before everything else. There are people that get so invested in their children. Now, Brendan, I know you were not here at the very beginning, and that was an important thing you had to go to. I'm not talking about that, so don't feel funny. Don't worry, I'll murmur about you later. But people who invest so much in their children, they get tied up in their kids. The children leave home, and suddenly they realize they're married to a perfect stranger. That's the wrong way around. Well, you know what? It's Billy's soccer this weekend. In fact, he has soccer practice every Sabbath, and so, well, he'll just miss a couple of months of service. Well, then we have the first priority wrong. Things have to be in this order for us to completely understand and start to walk in the Spirit of Yahweh and produce the fruit that He made for us. Okay? Because, let's see here, I gotta look at my notes. When we said for better, for worse, for sicker, for poorer, sicker in sickness and in health, whatever it was we said, what did we say, honey? One of those things. It will come, one or all of those things. And it's at that point we have to have those priorities in place. If one person gives and the other does not, that is an abusive relationship. Messiah's biblical example is give, give. The man is not God, and the woman is not his property. She can trust him, and he will consider her needs and consider her wisdom to make his decisions. That's the beauty of the unanimity. We're working for the same goal. Running the house. Oh, actually, let me back up just a quick second. Isn't that a good one? Hold on. Hold that thought. The other thing is that when you're going into the process, Rachel, you can tell all your single friends when they're going into the process of getting married, tell them they need to talk to that person to decide or to understand who it is that they're going to marry. You want to marry someone you agree with, not that you're a mirror image of them, but you agree, and that who knows what you believe. Are we having children? Are we not having children? Are we having 40 children? Are we relocating every 6 months? Are we changing careers? Am I having a career? You're having a career. Define what is material needs. I need a love seat. You need a jacuzzi. Are these needs? We need forks. Does the baby need a fork or does he use his hands? Faith. Talk about your faith. That's where getting your theology down beforehand is a great help. Okay, so let's move on to the house. Running the house. Now, there are two kinds of people. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. But think in this term, extrovert and, yeah. Why is it that opposites attract? Remember Mary Ellen, when you were dating, you were saying, oh, that is so interesting about him or her. And 6 months after marriage, that is so annoying. What? And the difference between interesting and annoying is time. Isn't that funny? We think of those things, but when you have someone that, they grew up in a home where Tuesday night was meatloaf night, and you ate supper at 6:05 every night, don't be late. And Thursday night is, or whatever night, and everything is rigid. And if the phone rings, what was that? Because we don't answer the phone, and the phone is off. So it must be a salesperson. The neighbor's house may be on fire, but we don't answer it. So forget it. On the other end of the spectrum, you have an open house, and it's chaos, and they love that. Okay, what was your name again? Oh, you're the neighbor from down to the left or to the right. Don't you? Your mother works at the PTA. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So how many people are we having for supper tonight? That sort of thing. And both of those things thrive, but those people, those are things to work out in the architecture of your house, the house not made with hands beforehand, because they become little foxes down the road. Okay, running the house, scheduling, budgeting, family holidays. Not that this was ever a tension between Mrs. Olson and me, where we spent Thanksgiving. Let's see, dealing with extended family. I have to tell you, I don't know how many times the phone has rung and my wife says, honey, it's your parents, answer the phone. I was like, They're your parents too, honey, but they're your parents. Okay, I'll answer the phone, but they want to talk to you too, I'm thinking. So, you know, it's just a funny thing. And in the end, it's something to work out. You got to work it out. The next thing is technology. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, before technology, just remember this, that you're an extrovert and you have people in your house all the time, and you're married to an introvert. Eventually, the introvert will meet them at the door with a shotgun. So, try to have a balance there. Okay, technology. This is something that you want to decide, even if you haven't. The world is ever changing with technology, and we still have to start coming up with, oh, is my phone ringing? Sorry, everybody. Hold this meeting for a minute. Let me get my phone. How to handle cell phones, movies, social media, emails, because they can constantly interrupt. And what is wrong with interrupting? Well, it creates disruption and disrespect. It tells the children it's okay if we're having a meaningful conversation and the perfect random stranger calls, we will let them have priority over a face-to-face dialogue. That is something to work out. And there should be a place for it, and there should be a place where it's done. It says here on that screen, how's your dinner, honey? And that one says GRS. I looked up GRS, and I don't, some goofy things. I hope GRS doesn't mean anything to you. Because I couldn't find anything that was conflict. There will always be some disagreements. Now, Casey and Sarah don't know that yet, right? Because they've never had a crossword with each other. But eventually it comes. There's a moment where you simply will not agree. And this is what I did with my children when they were young and I was studying my theology or reading the comics or something. And I could hear them squabbling in the other room. I'd go in there and I'd say, work it out to play together, or work it out to play apart, or I will work it out. And if it comes to number 3, you may not like it. So you might want to figure option 1 or 2. Because when we get to 3, it's my decision. So in that case, sometimes you work out a solution or you let it go. It's not worth the marriage. Yes?
One thing that's interesting about that, when you were going over this in the car, as I thought about it, was usually, and that's another place for Little Fox, is the fact that when there's a conflict, that's an actual conflict, it usually comes about when somebody's feelings get hurt. It's not just a pizza topping that, you know, like, oh, this is our biggest conflict. Like, what do we put on pizza? No, it's like, no, somebody's feelings got hurt, and that's when it gets personal, and that's the Little Fox that you can't let take control. Because that's bitterness instantly.
And it rises quickly, and you didn't realize it was there. Now you got to deal with it. So a couple need to work it out or let it go. Let that other person have it, because it's not worth the marriage. Not worth the marriage. Or get counseling. We can't get counseling. What will they think of us at City on a Hill? There is counseling. People come to points of counseling. That's why we have counseling majors. They help us through. That's why we have elders who walk us through things. That's why we have brothers and sisters. That's why we have the Word, is that there are times where people can't work things out and they need help. And that's the body ministry. And it needs to happen. There are some seasons that are hard. Little babies. Diapers and lack of sleep. And I don't mean to discourage you, but for some reason after the diaper stop, the sleep doesn't necessarily come back. And I haven't figured that one out yet. Okay, so just realize that there are hard seasons in life. You have to go through them. You have to endure. The question to ask yourself is, are my expectations of my spouse reasonable? The legitimate fear is divorce. Now, two things on this. One is, that is a little fox that will sneak in and will kill everything. And believe you me, you've met enough people. Divorce is a gift that keeps on taking, doesn't it? We've heard of those blended families and the things that happen, because years after the divorce, she's still nagging me. He's still trying to find a way not to pay child support. No, it's not done. So we do everything we can to keep far away from that. We work our marriage. We work our relationship to be Song of Solomon. So that doesn't happen. And at the same time, we don't play around with that D word as an option. Well, I could just get a divorce. That's not an option. We are working toward unanimity. There are biblical grounds for it, but the very idea should not be used. When you consider that, most divorces happen by 7 years. One statistic I had on a thing, whether it's true or not, by 40 years, 2/3 of all marriages end in divorce. But, we were talking about that in the car too, and you have to realize that there are some people who repeat, so they add to the statistic more than just once. Okay. All right, moving on to the fourth piece of pie. Oh, hallelujah, he's finally here. But you notice I didn't give you what this one is. You're going to have to figure it out. It goes like this. You may know me. I'm your constant companion. I'm your greatest helper. I'm your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am at your command. Half the tasks you do might as well be turned over to me. I'm able to do them quickly and the same every time, if that is what you want. I'm easily managed. All you have to do is be firm with me. Show exactly how you want it done, and after a few lessons, I can do it automatically. I am the servant of all great men and women. Of course, I am also a servant of all failures as well. I've made all those who've been great, whoever were great, to be great. But don't forget, I've also made them failures too. I work with all the precision of a marvelous computer and with the intelligence of a person. You may run me for profit or you may run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Be firm with me, and I will put the world at your feet. You ask who I am? Any guesses? Habit. Les habits. What you say? It's just a habit. Yes, it's just a habit. Where is it? Bad habits steal the destiny that Yahweh has ordained for you to live. You have to go after bad habits relentlessly, without mercy, and ask the Holy Spirit to show you how to walk in opposition to bad habits. All things are lawful for me. Let's say this together. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. And the whole point of that is, Paul is not talking about killing your neighbor. He's talking about things that are legal, if we want to go legal, but it cannot be my master. It's permissible, but some of those things are holding us back from his best. Let's see, what would that be? I can swear all I want. Sure. Power of death and life are in the tongue. I can hang out with anyone I want. Sure. They're toxic. Parasites. They'll suck the life out of you and then they'll go on to the next person. I can spend my time however I want. Oh, sure. Sure. The key, what is the key? Is that everyone is human, but we can't allow our flawed humanity to be the excuse for something to control us, okay? To master us or dominate us. You open that kind of door to a habit that you know is not helping you to move choice. And what is Yahweh saying in Song of Solomon? Come away with me, my love. Come back to the garden. I want to show you what wholeness is.
You know, David, that's interesting about habits, because we all know it's difficult to break a bad habit. So before we create a habit, we got to consider what habits we want to create. And let's just create good ones.
Yes. Oh, now that's the last piece of pie. Some people are faster pie eaters than the rest of us. Okay. Some habits become so common that we simply accept it. It's just part of my life. Overeating, exaggerating. Josiah, if I told you once, I told you a million times, don't exaggerate. Cheating. It's just a little cheat. I'm just looking over. It didn't hurt them. Helps my score. It doesn't help hurt theirs. Negativity, cynicism, suspicion. No, things start to grow, and like procrastination, I will get to it. Does anybody else have things in their garage from 30 years ago? And I didn't even live in the house 30 years ago. Ungrateful? Demanding? Are we demanding of our spouse and our children? Because, you know, I worked a full day's work, and I can come home, and it's okay for me to expect them to do something for me, right? Because they're my family. Alluring toward sexual lusts, profanity, just a little profanity. This was something amazing when we were in the army. You'd have Sunday Christians, some people that cleaned up their language for the weekend, and then the rest of the week they couldn't tell them the difference between any other soldier. It was really amazing. Just remember what is at stake. Your best, your destiny, your life in Him. We form habits, then habits form us. Well, this is what my dad always said, always did. No, you have the habit. Stop the generational curse of family iniquities. Okay, here we go. Letting things slip. What is that? When you start at the top of the snow hill, it's a little ball, and by the time you're at the bottom, the snowball has consumed you, and you are going to crash, right? So what are some of those things? This is my next piece of pie, right, on the little foxes. We are getting close to the end, I promise. Communication. Communication is one of those things that slips. It's lost in translation. I didn't understand what you said, and we don't clarify it, and before you know it, I've assumed, you've assumed, and it's blown up. And then I've misread your intentions. Oh, why do I do that? Surely my wife has never misread my intentions. Oh, cleanliness. Rudy Giuliani. In 1994, Rudy Giuliani campaigned on reducing crime in New York City. It was at its all-time high. How did he do it? Well, yeah, that's right. He got to his first meeting, and they said, okay, so what's the plan? And he said, we're going to fix broken windows, and we're going to whitewash graffiti. We're going to clean the place up. And they did. And for the next 4 or 5 years, they had record low crime. And his idea was this: if we let our city get run down, we will attract rats. Order in the home and in the body. What kind of order do you run in your house? And thinking of here, you know we have small children. And sometimes I walk by and there's that cup sitting there every time after every service because that kid does not pick up after himself. And so I have to do it. And he opened not his mouth like the lamb unto the slaughter and picked it up and said, "O Lord, no one sees this service but you in heaven, for I will be rewarded." And he says, "Get over yourself. This is my house. This is the Schwartz's house. But when we are here, this is the house of Yahweh. And if there's something to pick up, pick it up, for crying out loud, because we don't attend First Church in the landfill." But having said that, children are children. even if they are 55 years old. And sometimes they forget. And so we can have grace for each other, can't we? And we can't just assume that the Schwartzes will love the next day of picking up all of the trash here and there and putting things back in straight for a few weeks from now. Consider all that goes into sitting on a hill Shavuot preparation. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's a list of like 65 things. It might have grown by now. I don't know, but there's a lot. Okay. Disrepair. Broken cables. Burnt out light bulbs. You know, they're small things, but eventually they need to be fixed. Now, sometimes if you're having a conversation with your wife about something very important, and you say, I'll be right back, honey, I just want to slip into some different shoes, socks or whatever, and I go into the laundry room and she's sitting there waiting, and honey, where are you? Oh, well, the laundry just needed to be taken out and switched over. I'll be right there. Oh, that is so sweet of him. 5 minutes later, honey, where are you? Oh, well, I just went past the trash and I brought it out to the garage and I noticed that the light bulb was out. So finally, about 30 minutes later, I sit down with her and I say, what do you want to talk about? And she says, nothing. So there are priorities, but there are things to fix, and fix them in the right time. Not when you're supposed to sit down with your wife. Slippery slope, some more relationships. Where are we? Oh, criticism. Comments. Okay. You're always picking. Oh, you're always picking. You're always picking things. Picking on. You're always doubting. You're always. Ever use that? Remember from our rules for a fair fight? Stay away from absolutes. You're so critical. You are blind. You know, we need to stay away from name calling. And we have to be careful of little things. When we criticize, it just becomes a snowball and it gets bigger. And before you know it, we can't do nothing right. And we go and we talk to our sisters, and my husband ain't doing nothing right. We go to work and my wife can't do nothing right. And all of a sudden our grammar's the least of our concerns. Okay, contempt. Ever do this? How about this? Oh my goodness. One time when I was, my mother passed away when I was 7. My dad remarried, and that was a rocky road for a while. But my stepmother, she was lecturing me one time, and I happened to roll my eyes one too many times. And I found out that the bed springs do really work well when you're being shaken. And I was very thankful that it was not on a wooden bench or something, but she shook the sense back into me and a little bit of respect, too. And I lost a few points of coolness if my friends had been looking, or I ate some humble pie. But the whole idea is that mocking, nicknames, well, there goes Mr. Clumsy again. You know, that can be, yes.
It's maybe put those two right next to each other. For marriages especially, criticism and contempt are really, really deadly. John Gottman, who is one of the foremost researchers in marriage stuff, he has found that criticism, contempt, and 2 other things are basically the biggest indicators of divorce. Like, if you consistently do those things with your spouse, that's pretty much it. Unless you have an extremely high tolerance for a whole lot of misery. So,
I think one of my guys that I was listening to quoted him, so you might find the rest of them right here. Defensiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Of course I'm angry. Look who I'm married to. Of course I'm moody. I have to share a house with you. Yes, you're on the road to divorce. It's your fault. You triggered me. Unrepentant, never taking blame. And then here we go. Here's the last one. Pick up my book, put my headphones on, and I'm done. Because I'm not listening to you. What are you doing? That's where my stepmother, bless her heart and rest her soul, needs to reach from beyond the grave and shake you again and say, wake up. You don't have the right to act this way in your marriage. Often it's the husband, in this case, saying, I'm done. Okay. Parent to parallel living. We live in the same house, and yet we live separate lives. It's divorce without a certificate. You can't read it down there. So I just don't have the paper to show it, but other than that, we are divorced. There's a couple more things. These are separate. Pain from our past that we haven't resolved. Now, it's one thing, you've heard those people that they tell you all day long, yeah, I used to be a real swinging guy. I'd go down and party and I'd have fights and I'd get in a beer brawl and all this. Yeah, that was great times, but now I'm saved. Well, that's not really much of a testimony if that's the way you're approaching it. But there are legitimate things if we were abused as children, or if we have been through revolving situations, dating relationships with people that were abusive and broke our trust, that if we don't deal with them, they'll continue to fester. We need to be able to come to a point and say, yeah, you know what? This happened to me as a child, and this is what Yahweh showed me, and this is what I'm learning. That's healthy for us, for our spouse, for our children, okay? Someone who cheated on you, like a broken bone that was never set right. You have a constant limp with pain, a limp or pain. You can't say, I don't want to talk about it, it's in my past. Okay? Issues. Here we go. Issues of shame. Secret sins never confessed. Some couples don't ever ask the hard questions, assuming that everything's right, unless they hear otherwise, and by then it's too late. So periodically we have to ask that question of ourselves, what foxes are in my vineyard? And we ask with our partner, what foxes in our vineyard? Well, we don't have any foxes. No, they're there. It's the business that you are either allowing them to chew on your vine and you don't know it, or you don't think about it, or they're just running around. They haven't begun to chew. This is a book. Brendan, you ever hear of the alphabet series, storybook series? There's a different animal for each letter of the alphabet. For the letter P, we had Perry the polite porcupine. And with this, in the story, he buys a book on manners, and the guy at the store says, what are you buying a book on manners? Well, you can never have too many manners, always something more you can learn. So he's an expert in it, and yet he continues to drive himself toward proper manners, courtesy and such. And in the book, he realizes, by buying this book, that sometimes it's the right answer to say no. It's the loving answer. Okay? And so, same thing for us. Where did we get to with that? Some things are foxes, and we need to tell them no. We need to do the right thing. Last piece of pie. Yes, finally. And then we'll go get to eat. So, that's the last piece. The last piece is good habits. Good habits. The process of making decisions. We all make decisions every day. Decisions shape our habits. Habits shape our character. Character shapes our destiny. Good decisions help that destiny's strength. But righteous decisions shape our destiny toward Yahweh's will in our lives. That's what we want. Righteous decisions. And those are intentional. Good habits will strengthen your life. They will help you develop a quality of life that the Father wants for you, and ultimately you will find rewarding for yourself. And then regardless of the conditions, we can say, it is well with my soul. All right, I just have a couple left. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, the little foxes, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Yeshua, the author and perfecter of faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured our cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of the Almighty. Ephesians 6. Finally, be strong in Messiah and the strength of his might. Put on the full armor so that you may be able to withstand or stand firm against the schemes of the devil. With all prayer and petition, pray at all times with the Spirit. And with this in view, be on the alert with all perseverance and petition for all the saints. This does not sound like people who just sit back and, rest and assume that the little foxes are just going to do their thing and you'll be all right. This is intentional, active, proactive living. But you, when you go into your inner room, close your door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. I have treasured your word in my heart that I may not allow the little foxes to destroy that home that you have made for me and my family, my wife. Therefore, beloved, since you look for these things, be diligent to be found in him, peace, spotless and blameless, and regard the patience of our Savior as salvation. Hallelujah. Just as our beloved brother Shaul, according to the wisdom given him, wrote to you. Above all, keep fervent in your love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. Because we say we want to, but we live in a culture of instant gratification. We want everything in 60 seconds or less. Good habits come to those who are persistent and refuse to quit. The successful person has a habit of doing the things that failures don't like to do. The successful person doesn't like doing them either. I love this part right here, but his dislike is subordinated to the strength of his purpose. What is our purpose? Does it overrun those things that don't matter in this world? He said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. Focus on him, the author and completer of your faith. How long does it take for a habit to form? 21 days. And I think, is this my second to last one? This is, no, maybe not. But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not carry out the desire of the flesh, the little foxes. For the flesh sets itself against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, for these are in opposition to one another, so that you may not do the things that you please. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the judgment of Torah. Now the deeds of the flesh are evident. This is a good passage, the whole passage. I'm going to keep moving. This is my last primary verse that I want to look at. If you look at this one, how can you not, if you meditate on this, how can you not walk away understanding power in the Holy Spirit? Simon Peter, a bondservant and apostle of Messiah Yeshua, to those who have received a faith of the same kind as ours, by the righteousness of our Elohim and Savior, Yeshua Messiah. Now, the underline of the bold is mine, obviously. Grace and peace be multiplied to you. We have grace and we have peace in the knowledge of Yahweh and Yeshua our Master. What? Seeing that his divine power has granted to us everything pertaining to life and godliness, that fruit that you are to be producing through the true knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and excellence. For by these he has granted to us his perfect, his precious and magnificent promises. He will tend your garden. He will see you there, and he will see you through, no matter what, so that by them you may be partakers of the divine nature. That's why we're here.
Do anything other than that, so we have to be aware that sometimes we have to do something too, not just pray.
Right. It's the whole business of intentionally working in that garden and understanding our position in him and walking in that. Yeah, thank you. Consider an accountability partner. And the last thing, happy hunting, happy harvest. It's that time of year. So, with that in mind, Father, we bless you once again. I just pray that some of these things you would help us to consider. Help us regularly, seasonally, intentionally go after them, and may we wear the armor of Yahweh, and may we be ever vigilant on the city walls of our hearts. May we give ourselves to our partner. May we as the body minister to each other, that the world might know, and your kingdom come. In Yeshua, amen.